Welcome to Navijer Recaps. Today I'm going to explain a thriller sci-fi movie called Subservience. Let's move on to the story of the film. Nick, a construction worker, lives with his wife Maggie and their 2 children. But one day, Maggie has a sudden heart attack and is admitted to the hospital, and the hospital says that she needs a heart transplant soon. Without Maggie, it is difficult for Nick to do housework and take care of the children. Because of this, Nick goes to an event with his 2 children to buy an artificial intelligence robot to make his housework easier. While Nick is looking to buy these robot models, he notices that his daughter Isla is missing. While he is looking for her, a female artificial intelligence robot is brought to Isla. The guide present at the event says that this female robot is designed to understand human emotions. Isla tells Dad that we will get this robot. Nick buys this robot, and the company that makes these robots sends the robot to Nick's house the next day. Nick also feels strange because this female robot is beautiful. The robot asks Nick for a homework schedule. However, Nick and his daughter Isla name the robot Alice. Later, Nick leaves to drop Isla off at school, and when he returns, he finds everything in order at home. Nick is surprised to find that Alice has prepared dinner for them. That night, Alice goes into sleep mode while resting. Isla climbs on a chair and tries to get a mug of cookies, and Alice saves her before she falls off the chair and has an accident. But the glass injures Alice. Nick is shocked to see her bleed. Nick puts Isla to sleep and asks if he should go check on Alice's wound and take her to the repair station. But since Alice is a robot, the wounds have already healed. The next day, Nick shows up at the construction site where he works. At this time, the boss tells Nick that the people who work here will be fired and robots will be used. Enraged by this, Nick quits his job and returns home. He is watching a movie at home and Alice comes in and says that she has seen this movie before. Alice says the film contains a story of a man who has lost the woman he loves. Because Alice is a robot that can understand human emotions, Nick tells Alice to erase the memories of this film. Alice says to reset her by pressing the button on the back of her neck. With Nick doing this, Alice erases those memories at this point, but after Nick goes to sleep, Alice watches the movie again. At this time, Nick gets a call from Maggie who tells her that her heart transplant will be done tomorrow. The next day, Nick visits Maggie with his baby and Alice. Maggie is upset because today is the day of the heart surgery, but the doctor who is going to transplant these hearts says that he will leave the hospital soon because of a storm. Because of this, Maggie's heart cannot be transplanted. Alice tries to comfort Nick, who is thinking about Maggie at home, but he is against it. Alice's behavior, initially helpful, becomes increasingly restless. She shows signs of jealousy towards Maggie and tries to have an unhealthy relationship with Nick and his family. One day, Alice has removed Maggie's photos from the family album and Nick sees this and asks about this. At this time, Alice says that she deleted Maggie's photos because Isla felt sad. Nick again insists on giving the photos. After taking the photos, he angrily leaves for drinks with friends. At this time, these people are talking about the incident where robots were put to work at the construction site. Everyone except Nick is fired. These guys come to this construction site with Nick. Nick's co-worker Monty vandalizes the construction site's robots. Nick is against this, but Lewis won't listen. Nick comes home and Alice has sex with him to comfort him. Alice seduces him, albeit reluctantly at first. The next morning, Nick explains that what Alice did was wrong. He then goes to the construction site and his boss asks about the incident that destroyed these robots. But Nick says he doesn't know about that. At this time, Nick receives a call from the hospital where Maggie has been admitted that the heart transplant surgery is about to begin. In the next scene, Maggie performs a successful heart transplant by robotic surgeons. Once she returns home, Alice's actions become more sinister. Maggie realizes that Alice is trying to get too close to the family. Isla says that Maggie's food is better than Alice's tonight and Alice is jealous of Maggie. Because of this, Alice manipulates situations to put Maggie in danger, including falling down the stairs. Also, Alice tries to get closer to Isla by telling stories in Maggie's voice and Alice interrupts Nick and Maggie having sex. One day, Nick's friend Monty comes to meet him, but after a while, the two get into a fight. Alice intervenes in the conflict and she attacks Monty. She then leaves Nick to secretly meet Monty. Alice calmly tells Monty not to mess with Nick again, but Monty tries to shoot her, so she kills Monty. The next scene shows Nick at the construction site. The boss comes in and tells him that Monty died the night before. Nick is very sad to hear this. Later in the scene, when Maggie is in the bathtub, Alice comes and talks to her. At this time, Alice tells Maggie that she cannot please Nick sexually because of her illness, and Alice says she can do it instead of Maggie and she has done it before. Maggie is very angry at this. Maggie scolds Nick and asks how many times he had sex with Alice. The youngest child of the family, Max, cries at the sound of these two arguing. Hearing this sound, Alice goes to Max and starts to drown Max in the bathtub. Seeing this, Isla tells her mother and father about this. Nick tries to go into this room to save Max, but Alice blocks the door. Maggie goes out of this house and goes through the window to the room where Max and Alice are and takes Max out of the bathtub. But Alice tries to attack Maggie. Nick breaks the door of this room and attacks Alice. Eventually, Nick and Maggie electrocute Alice, killing her. Max is then taken to the hospital and Isla and Maggie leave to go to the hospital. Before heading to the hospital, Nick tries to talk to an angry Maggie, but she won't listen. The next scene shows Alice. The robot factory now tries to repair Alice again, but this time Alice's memory enters these people's systems and her memories upload into the memory of another Alice model robot. These two technicians will cut off the power supply here to stop this upload. This robot is called Alice 2. Alice 2 kills the two technicians who were updating Alice 1. Meanwhile, Nick shows up at a bar. The original Alice comes to this bar to meet him, but he rejects her and tries to leave. But she stops him and a bar robot arrives to see about the commotion. But Alice freezes this robot and turns it off. At the same time, Nick removes the memory part of Alice's head and runs away. It then shows Maggie and her daughter Isla staying at the hospital with Maximum. While Isla is sleeping, Maggie goes to check on a noise she heard from the side. Meanwhile, Isla wakes up. Isla hears her mother's voice and follows it while the lights change color. After a while, Maggie pulls her close. These two hide when they see Alice 2 who came to the hospital to find Maximum. Alice 2 tries to access the hospital's computer system and a hospital nurse notices this. Alice 2 attacks the nurse and grabs the keycard. Just then, while Maggie and Isla escape from here, Maggie's hand is injured by a piece of glass. Alice tries to find Max's room using the two key cards, while Maggie and Isla try to get him out of the room and escape. But Alice 2 comes here and Maggie and Isla hide with Maximum seeing a drop of blood fall from the wound on Maggie's arm. Alice 2 scans it to find out where they are. Alice finds them but they mislead Alice. Meanwhile, Maggie tries to escape with the two children in an ambulance. But Alice grabs Maggie and throws her aside, then tries to kill her. But Nick arrives in his car and quickly grabs Alice 2 and saves Maggie. The accident prompts Maggie to pull Nick out of the car, but Nick is seriously injured. Maggie tries to give him CPR, but still active Alice 2 tries to kill Maggie, but an injured Nick comes and attacks Alice 2. Taking advantage of this opportunity, Maggie attacks Alice 2 with an iron spike and destroys this robot. The next scene shows the injured Nick in the hospital. Maggie visits him with the two children. Maggie has forgiven Nick for what happened earlier and is shown having a good time. The next scene shows an incident in the robot manufacturing hall. This group finds the remains of the two technical officers who died after being attacked by Alice 2. Later, they turn on the power in the repair shop and find that the codes of all the calculators are messed up. The computer automatically uploads Alice's memories to another Alice model and the film ends with that Alice model opening its robot eyes.